3 bone-chilling true stalker horror stories that haunt you. The night was thick with shadows, and in the small town of Millfield, whispers of horror echoed. A chilling breeze rattled through the trees, carrying the scent of fear. Jennifer had no idea that each small creak of her old house was a warning. What had started as a peaceful evening was about to spiral into pure terror. Alone in her room, she glanced at the window, just in time to see a figure fade into the darkness. Heart racing, she attempted to shake the image from her mind. But that was just the beginning. The local diner buzzed the next morning with the strangest tales. A neighbor had reported seeing an unfamiliar face watching from across the street, an expression so twisted it could make anyone's skin crawl. The strangest part. The man wore an identical jacket to one Jennifer had worn just hours before, back when she felt safe. Gazes darted around the room, funnily held together by the thin thread of disbelief. Could it be someone was targeting her? With each retelling, fear rippled through the crowd. Someone had even spotted a silhouette lurking around her backyard, a shadow that never quite melted away with the daylight. A knot tightened in Jennifer's stomach as the weight of paranoia pressed down on her. Was this just a sick joke or the start of something much darker? Threads of suspicion knit tight among the townsfolk, and they weren't just shocked, they were uncomfortable. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. That evening, as Jennifer lay in bed, goosebumps prickled her skin. Every rustle outside felt magnified. A quick glance at the clock brought sudden clarity. It was completely still at 2:14 a.m. The eerie calm was shattered by a loud thud against her back door. Fear shot through her veins like ice. She held her breath, listening intently. The sound came again, followed by muffled noises, low whispers drifting through the cracks. You can't hide. They seemed to taunt, heart pounding. She swung her legs over the bed, each step toward the door heavy with dread. Enough was enough. She needed answers. Whoever was out there couldn't get away with this. Just as her hand hovered over the doorknob, silence fell heavy, choking off all sound. The moments felt eternal, then a fateful question tore through the silence. What would she find on the other side? The knob felt cold beneath her fingertips, a shock of reality that sent shivers racing down her spine. She hesitated, forced to confront the reality of what lay beyond that door. The whispers had stopped, leaving an ominous stillness, as if the world was holding its breath. The thudding against her back door had ceased, replaced by an unsettling calm. It was the kind of silence that crept under her skin, worse than any sound. Jennifer pushed down the doorknob, her heart skittering like a trapped bird. Just as she opened it, a flash of movement caught her eye. Something slipped past the window, dark and swift. Her breath caught in her throat, and instinct screamed at her to step back. But then she remembered the rumors, the fearful eyes in the diner, the fear that gripped her small town. She breathed in sharply and stepped outside. The moon hung high in the night sky, illuminating her backyard, casting shadows that played tricks on her mind. She squinted into the darkness, searching for any sign of movement. It was eerily quiet. The kind of quiet that wrapped around her like icy fingers, squeezing the breath from her lungs. And then she saw it, a figure crouched near the edge of the tree line. Her breath hitched as adrenaline surged through her veins. It was just a silhouette, yet it was enough to freeze her in place. Was it him? The familiar jacket? Who are you? She called out, her voice trembling but fierce. No answer. The figure remained still, almost mesmerized by the light of the moon. She scanned her surroundings, looking for anything to defend herself, a rock, a branch, anything to feel a little less vulnerable. The figure moved slightly, and instinctively, Jennifer took a step forward, propelled by a mix of fear and anger. Get away from my house. she shouted, her voice cracking. To her shock, the figure spun around, revealing a face that was not a stranger but a ghostly memory. The man from her dreams, or maybe it was just her vivid imagination. The twisted expression that had haunted her somehow felt familiar. "Help me please," he muttered, eyes wide with desperation. "They're coming for you." His voice was jagged, broken, grasping for clarity, as if he were trapped in a nightmare. Jennifer's stomach twisted as she took a shaky step back. Did she trust him? What if he was playing a role in her torment? Yet something in his eyes, a flicker of sincerity, made her reconsider. "What do you mean?" she asked, her own fear mingling with curiosity. For a brief moment, she thought he might answer, may explain everything that had happened. But then, from the thicket behind him, came an unmistakable rustling, a sound that felt predatory. Her heart raced again, but now it was a different fear, one of imminent danger. The figure's expression shifted from pleading to fear, his voice dropping to a frantic whisper. "Run! They're here!" A chill of terror gripped her. She turned her head back toward the house. Where could she go? Who were they? The only thing she knew was that she had to move. Every instinct screamed at her to escape, but before she could make a decision, a shape emerged from the shadows, looming tall and menacing. The air thickened, saturated with dread. What had she gotten herself into? As she froze, rooted in place, another voice echoed behind the newcomer, chilling her to the bone. "You really thought you could escape?" Jennifer stood on the brink of realization in terror. Every second felt like a countdown. Who had been stalking her, and what did they want? Her heart pounded as she faced the unknown. Would she find a way out of this nightmare? The figure stepped forward, and moonlight spilled over his face, revealing sharp features and an unsettling grin. The blood drained from Jennifer's face as terror clawed at her throat. She didn't dare move. Her feet felt bound to the ground by invisible chains. "Who are you?" she whispered, voice barely breaking the thick air. "Just someone who knows you," he replied, tilting his head. There was a twisted amusement in his eyes. "And someone who knows your secret." Jennifer's mind raced. Secret? What could he possibly know? Her heart hammered painfully against her chest. She wanted to scream, to run, but the terror kept her paralyzed. The man from her dreams stood beside her, eyes darting nervously. "You have to listen to me. This isn't just some game. They're not just here for me, they want you too." Jennifer felt the weight of his words, heavy and suffocating. "What do you mean?" she pressed, desperation creeping into her voice. That he opened his mouth as if to answer, but before he could say another word, a rustle erupted from the thicket. She leaned into the shadows, straining to see what was lurking in the darkness, dread pooling in her stomach. The menacing shape that had emerged from the shadows shifted closer, blocking her escape. "Turn around and run, Jennifer," he shouted suddenly at her, voice sharp. "Don't look at them. Just run." Without thinking, she turned on her heel and dashed for the house. Her feet thundered against the ground as she sprinted through the weeds, heart racing. A cold mist mingled with the night air, filling her lungs with each desperate breath. She didn't dare look over her shoulder. She felt their eyes boring into her back, the presence of more than one shadow. A sharp gasping sound echoed behind her, a reminder that they were pursuing her. Adrenaline pumped through her veins, urging her to move faster. But her feet felt heavy, as if the ground was pulling her back, wanting to keep her rooted in place. "Jennifer!" The shout pierced the night. The figure from her dreams was still close, lurching alongside her. "Keep going. Don't stop." The back door of her house loomed ahead like a beacon of hope, but panic clawed at her, fear compelling her to act. The door creaked ominously as she shoved it open, nearly tripping over the threshold. She slammed it shut behind her, wheezing for breath, frantically fumbling for the lock, but dread slithered down her spine. As she looked through the window, a nightmare stood still on the porch. Shadows danced outside, moving with purpose, two figures merging into one dark mass as if they were one entity, collectively feeding her fear. They were closing in, and she could feel the cold grip of terror tightening around her throat. "Jennifer, you have to listen." The man's voice broke into her panicked thoughts, but as she turned to speak to him, she froze. He displayed a look of horror that mirrored her own. They were inside her house now. "Get down!" he screamed. Jennifer ducked just in time, as something smashed through the glass where she stood moments before, shattering the piece of her safe space. The sound resonated through her skull, a sickening pulse of reality. She could see the shadow bending over her, stretching its hand toward her. "Don't let them see you," he urged, his voice frantic. The reality snapped back to her with a jolting clarity. They knew where she was. In that instant, Jennifer realized the truth that paralyzed her with dread. This wasn't simply about her. This was a game of survival. The stakes were higher than she'd ever imagined. She had choices to make, paths to take, but in this moment, she felt utterly powerless. Who were these intruders? What did they want? And how far would they go to get it? As the door rattled violently under the weight of their assault, she knew one thing for certain: her life would never be the same again. What would it cost her to escape this nightmare? She had to decide fast. Jennifer stifled a gasp as she pressed herself against the wall, heart pounding like a drum in her ears. The shattered glass crunched underfoot as the dark figures advanced, their silhouettes weaving through the dim light with a relentless purpose. "Stay low," the man from her dreams whispered urgently, crouching beside her. His breath was ragged, eyes wide with fear. "We need to find a way out, and quick." The door shuddered as if the intruders sensed her presence, determination fueling their attack. Jennifer could hear muffled voices, sinister and taunting, leaking through the cracks that separated safety from horror. She felt faint, a cold sweat mingling with the fear coursing through her veins. The idea of fighting back seemed absurd. All she could think about was escape. "Where do we go?" she whispered, voice trembling. Panic squeezed her throat as she searched for a window or back door that could save them. "There's a basement," he said, darting a glance towards the frantic shadows on the door. "If we manage to get there, we might lose them." Before she could respond, the door splintered, cracking open just enough for a looming figure to slip through. Its face was obscured, but the malevolence radiating from it chilled her. Without thinking, she grabbed the man's wrist, dragging him down the hall toward the stairs leading to the basement. "Now! Hurry!" she hissed. They barreled down the stairs, breathless. The basement door crashed behind them, a violent echo that filled the air. She fumbled for the light, finally finding the switch. A dim bulb flickered to life, casting long shadows across the concrete floor. They crouched behind the old furnace, the darkness wrapping around them like a shroud. Jennifer's mind raced, full of questions. What did they want? Why her? The man's frightened face was illuminated by the faint light, revealing a gash on his forehead, blood trickling down his temple. "Are you okay?" she whispered, struggling to keep her voice steady. "They're not going to stop until they find us. We need to figure out what they want," he replied, pulling in a shaky breath. As dread settled like a weight on her chest, Jennifer felt a pulse of realization. "They know something," she murmured, as fragments of conversation stirred in her memory. Flashes of her life replayed through her mind, the late-night calls, the feeling of being watched. "Are you saying they know my secret?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. That he nodded, fear darkening his gaze. "Whatever it is, it's tied to you. You need to trust me. I won't let them hurt you." A muffled crash erupted from above, sending a jolt of terror through her. The intruders were relentless and had no intentions of backing down. In that moment of despair, a sudden thought hit her like a bolt of lightning. What if they are after more than just me? The words slipped from her lips, anxiety coiling tightly in her stomach. What if they're connected to what happened last summer? The man's face drained of color. "Summers ago, the fire exactly," she exclaimed, her heart racing. "That night, it wasn't just an accident. It was a loud bang cut through her voice, a loud thud that echoed off the basement walls. Jennifer clamped her mouth shut, feeling the texture of terror rise in her throat. The shadows above shifted, inching closer like phantoms come to claim what they owned. "Hide!" he urged, pulling her deeper into the shadows behind the furnace. Just as the door creaked open, they held their breath, silence pressing down on them like an oppressive weight. She could hear footsteps, heavy and purposeful, creeping through the door. "Jennifer, come out wherever you are," a mockingly sing-song voice called out, sending chills down her spine. The game was no longer about survival, it was a terrifying hunt, and they were the prey. What dark past had resurfaced, threatening to swallow her whole? As the figure drew closer, its shadow stretching ominously toward her hiding spot, she had only one chance and one chance only. Would she confront the past, or succumb to the fear? The truth was closer than she'd ever imagined, and with it came the answers that could either save or doom them both. The footsteps paused, an unsettling silence enveloping them. Jennifer felt her heart hammering in her chest, each beat echoing like a drum in the oppressive stillness. She strained to listen, hoping for any hint of retreat, but all she could hear was her own shallow breath and the distant creaking of the house as it settled. The figure inched closer, the flickering light barely illuminating a twisted smile creeping across its face. "Are you scared, Jennifer?" it taunted, voice dripping with a chilling delight. You should be. Her pulse raced. Panic surged as she clenched her eyes shut, desperate to dull the terror that threatened to consume her. What did they want? Did they want revenge for something she hadn't even known she had done? The realization struck her hard. The fire. It played in her mind like a twisted reel of film, taunting her with flashes of flames dancing, shadows cast against the night sky, and screams interwoven with the crackle of burning wood. "Focus, Jennifer," the man whispered urgently beside her. "We can't lose our heads." Jennifer forced her eyes open, meeting the man's determined gaze. A brief moment of clarity surged. If they could stay calm, they might find a way out. But as the figure above loomed like a dark specter, memories began to claw their way to the forefront of her mind. Suddenly, the figure swung a flashlight into the basement, casting an eerie light across their hiding space. Come out, little girl," it cooed, the playfulness contrasting sharply with its murderous intentions. Sweat trickled down Jennifer's back. She felt the weight of her past hanging over her like an anvil, ready to drop. "The fire. They think I was involved," she hissed to the man, eyes widening with realization, his brow furrowed, fear twisting into something sharper. "That fire wasn't just an accident, was it? You actually know who stopped?" She interrupted, her voice tremulous. "Just get us out of here first." "Okay, you're right." He scanned their surroundings under the dim bulb. "We need a distraction." As if responding to their whispered pleas, the basement door creaked, revealing a sliver of shadows that flitted about. Jennifer's breath caught a flash of movement, the figure stand alone in the doorway, glancing down the hall as a new voice emerged above them. "Did you find her?" The second voice slinked through the staircase hallway, low and dangerous. There was a beat of heavy silence. The first figure chuckled darkly. "Not yet, but I can smell her fear. It's intoxicating." Jennifer felt her stomach drop. "What do we do?" she breathed, panic flickering in her chest. "Stay still," he whispered fiercely, yearning to keep their breaths synchronized. As the threat loomed large above, the second figure entered, a hulking mass that blocked out the meager light from the stairs. It scanned the room, moving in slow, deliberate motions. "Perhaps we should start the fun down here," it mused ominously, its eyes glinting with malice as they settled on the old furnace. Jennifer's skin prickled. Time was running out, and fear was sinking into her bones like ice. Then she remembered something: a small vent near the floor behind the furnace. They could slip out through there. It might lead to the outside or, at worst, give them more time to think. But it would mean venturing into the unknown and possibly right into the hands of whoever was on the other side. "Follow me," she whispered urgently, hoping to mask the tremor in her voice. She nudged her way toward the opening, pulling the man with her as they slid beneath the iron embrace of the furnace. With each tiny movement, every grating sound felt like a death knell. She glanced back, caught a glimpse of the shadows shifting dangerously closer, the laughter still echoing through the chilled air. "Wait," he murmured, confusion mixing with dread. "What if we—" But before he could finish, a loud crash erupted above, followed by furious shouts. The laughter turned to chaos, and in that instant, adrenaline kicked in. "Now!" she hissed, pushing through the vent as the sounds of devastation echoed behind them. The outside world stretched out ahead, dark and foreboding. Would escape on this side lead to the answers they desperately needed, or worse, more danger? As the cool night air hit her face, she realized the real nightmare was just beginning. The world outside hit them like a bitter wind, sharp and frigid. Jennifer crawled out of the vent, shoving aside the dust and grime that clung to her skin. She took a moment to catch her breath, glancing around nervously. The yard was shrouded in darkness, the flickering glow of the house's windows behind her a stark reminder of their imminent danger. "Where are we?" the man whispered, peering into the shadows, his voice trembling with urgency. "Looks like the back," Jennifer replied, her throat dry. "We need to move." They hurried across the yard, staying low, every crackle of fallen branches sending jolts of panic through them. The shadows seemed to stretch and warble, distorting under the moonlight. Her heart raced as memories pressed in again, voices from that night, the flames, the chaos of the screaming crowd. But she couldn't afford to dwell on it. They had to concentrate on the now. A loud crash echoed from the house, breaking the fragile stillness. "They're coming!" she squeaked, panic swelling as she turned to face the man. His eyes were wide with fear, reflecting the dire reality of their situation. They had to find safety now. "Down the street?" he suggested, urgency dripping from every word. "Yeah," she said, grabbing his hand and pulling him toward the narrow alley that separated their house from the neighbors. They slipped between the shadows, pushing their way past overgrown branches and hedges. Jennifer's breath quickened, dread pooling in her stomach like a stone. "What if they see us?" she suddenly worried aloud, a deep-seated fear clawing at her insides. She stopped suddenly, realizing how unprepared they were. "Focus. Keep moving," he whispered harshly, squeezing her hand with a reassuring grip. Their feet moved in a chaotic rhythm, ducking behind a dumpster as they rounded a corner. The alley smelled of stale garbage and damp earth, but it was better than the impending doom of the house behind them. In that moment, they heard voices muffled but clear. Their pursuers were outside, searching. "Where the hell did they go?" one voice called out, laced with frustration. "They're not far. Check the back gate." Another yelled, footsteps echoing as they grew closer. Jennifer and her companion pressed their backs against the cold metal dumpster, hearts hammering in their chests. "We need to get out of here," he breathed, desperation lacing his tone. The desperation in her chest turned to fury. Was this because of her? Did they blame her for the fire? "I can't go back," she choked, fighting against the flood of memories. Suddenly, a faint sound clicked within the chaos, a car engine sputtering to life nearby, the headlights piercing through the darkness. "There!" she pointed, fingers trembling with excitement and hope. "We might get help." With a determined nod, they tore down the alley, darting into the glow of the headlights. Just a few more steps. But as they neared the vehicle, an ominous figure stepped out from the shadows. A smile spread across his face, that same twisted grin of the figure they had encountered earlier in the basement. "Thought you could escape, huh?" he sneered, taking a step forward, casting an imposing shadow over them. The man next to her froze, realization dawning on his face. "It's him." Before he could finish, the world erupted into chaos as Jennifer felt a cold grip around her wrist. She was pulled back, her scream tearing through the air, drowned out by the surrounding night. Everything spun out of control. She struggled against the grip, adrenaline surging through her veins, fueling her fight or flight. But in that moment, all hope seemed to shatter. Would they be consumed by the horrors lurking in the dark, trapped by a past they couldn't outrun? The figure leaned closer, and the night pulsated with tension as Jennifer braced herself for whatever twisted fate awaited her. Jennifer's heart raced as the cold grip tightened around her wrist, dragging her further into the shadowy abyss. Panic coursed through her veins, a raw, electric pulse overshadowing everything else. She twisted, trying to break free, but the figure's hold was unyielding, like iron shackles binding her to her fate. "Let her go!" The man shouted, a boldness in his voice that surprised Jennifer. The figure smirked, his eyes glinting with menace. "Brave little man, aren't you? You think you can play hero?" He yanked Jennifer closer, their faces only inches apart. The stench of cigarette smoke and something rotten filled her nostrils, making her gag. "Run!" The man yelled, teeth gritted, resolute. In that heartbeat, something inside Jennifer shifted. With a burst of instinctive energy, she kicked the figure's knee as hard as she could. The man stumbled backward, surprised, momentarily loosening his grip. Seizing her chance, Jennifer yanked her arm free and dashed toward the flickering headlights, but the looming figure wasn't just a faceless nightmare, he had momentum, and he was fast. "You think this ends here?" he barked, a sinister laugh trailing behind them. "You can't escape what you are." Fear surged through Jennifer, a frigid, suffocating terror as she glimpsed the man wrestling with the dark figure, struggling against a tide of force. The rhythm of the fight echoed in her ears, the heavy thuds against the pavement. "Get in the car!" she screamed, bouncing on her feet like a wild creature desperate to flee. Her eyes darted back as dread clawed at her mind. The man managed to land a punch, buying them precious seconds. He shot Jennifer an urgent look, an unspoken message of trust passing between them. She dove into the vehicle, heart pounding against her ribs, hands shaking as she scrambled for the door handle. "Go! Go! Go!" she shouted, urging him to follow. But the figure recovered far too quickly. He lunged, reaching for the man's shoulder just as he sprang toward the open door. The momentum sent him sprawling, hitting the ground hard. "Don't!" Jennifer screamed, panic igniting as she watched. "Get in!" Breathless, he lunged again, dodging the figure who was closing in fast. With a desperate leap, he managed to pull himself into the driver's seat, slamming the door just as the figure's hand grazed the window. The man fumbled for the keys and, for a moment, time felt suspended. The figure's expression twisted with rage as blue and red lights from the police station down the road illuminated the shadows, casting away some of their horror. "Start the car!" Jennifer begged, but the air was thick with tension. "Don't let him get you!" the man shouted, shaking as he fumbled with the ignition. She turned to face the figure, heart hammering. "Stay away from us!" she yelled, but her voice trembled. Would they be outmatched? "You'll never truly be free," he taunted, a twisted grin plastered on his face. "You think running will save you?" The engine sputtered to life just as the figure lunged again. The man stamped on the gas, wheels churning as they sped off, adrenaline rushing through them. As the headlights swept across the street, Jennifer turned around, her pulse still racing, but relief washed over her. They were moving, escaping. But even then, a chilling realization settled in. "Where do we go now?" she gasped, glancing at the man, whose face mirrored her own raw fear. He gripped the steering wheel tightly, knuckles white. "I don't know, but we can't stop." "Not yet." "Why is he after us? What did he mean?" Silence enveloped them, a heavy, suffocating blanket of uncertainty. The darkness outside rushed by them, threatening to envelope their fragile sanity, and just as they turned the corner, a sudden thought stopped Jennifer dead in her tracks. What if he knows where we're going? The man's expression darkened. The shadows seemed to stretch and swirl around them, as if the night itself was poised to swallow them whole. "Then we have to rely on something stronger than fear," he murmured, but what could that be? As they hurtled deeper into the unknown, the weight of secrets pressed heavily on them both. Would the horrors ever really end? The rush of wind howled through the open window, blending with their frantic breaths and the thumping of Jennifer's heart. Time stretched, each second a torturous reminder of the figure they had barely escaped. Whispers of disbelief and dread filled the car, thickening the atmosphere like fog on a cold morning. "What does he want with us?" Jennifer asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "I wish I knew," the man replied, his gaze flickering to the rearview mirror. "But we can't dwell on that now. We need to get as far away from here as possible." The road was a blur beneath them, dark and winding, almost alive, as though it itself were trying to ensnare them in its twists and turns. Jennifer leaned her forehead against the cool glass, her chest tight with anxiety. Every shadow outside felt like a threat, every rustle in the bushes a reminder that danger lurked just beyond their sight. As they turned onto a deserted back road, the headlights illuminated a weathered signpost, its words barely legible, "Welcome to Coldwater Falls." A chilling shiver crawled down Jennifer's spine. This place didn't feel friendly, it felt like a trap. Then the man's phone buzzed in the silence, jarring them both. He glanced down, eyes widening as he read the screen. "It's from my sister." She's reaching out about what? Jennifer interrupted, her eyes wide. "What is going on?" "Nothing good," he muttered, stress coating his words. "She was involved, years ago. Something she didn't want me to know about." "Is it connected to him?" Jennifer pressed, a knot forming in her stomach that he didn't answer, his jaw tightening, and Jennifer felt the weight of his silence. What was he hiding? What dark truths lay buried within his past, waiting to resurface? "Focus on driving," she urged, a low hiss of fear creeping into her voice. "Don't let him catch up to us." But he glanced at her, determination gleaming in his eyes, mixing with fear. "I can't let him get close, I want to let him." Suddenly, the sound of a distant engine reverberated behind them, barely discernible over the wind. The man's eyes widened. "What is that?" Fear clawed at Jennifer's insides. "What if he is following us?" "Then we'll deal with it," he said, but even he sounded uncertain. His grip on the steering wheel tightened as he pushed the accelerator, the car lurching forward. In the rearview mirror, two bright lights appeared, steadily closing the distance. The tension in the air crackled like electricity, mounting as the vehicle behind them drew closer, its engine growling like a beast ready to pounce. "What are we going to do?" she breathed, panic breaking through her composure. "Look for a place to hide," he shouted, scanning the roadside. "There has to be somewhere." The headlights grew blinding, and Jennifer's heart slammed against her ribs. She turned and saw the figure again, looming larger than life, his face twisted in manic glee, as if the thrill of the chase invigorated him. "You think you can get away?" he bellowed, laughter echoing through the night. "You belong to me." In an instant, the man jerked the steering wheel hard to the right, tires screeching as they veered down a dirt lane. The car jolted violently, rattling their bones. Dust swirled around them like a shroud, obstructing their view. "Hold on!" he shouted, and the wild rush of adrenaline sent them tumbling headlong into a rickety old barn. The doors slammed shut behind them with a resounding bang as the car's engine died. Darkness engulfed them. Breathless, they exited the car, their senses heightened. The doorway loomed dark behind them. With each passing second, the threatening presence outside grew menacing. "Do you think he followed us?" Jennifer whispered, clutching his hand tightly. "I don't know," he replied, but his voice lacked the confidence it once had. They crouched low, peering through a crack in the barn's wooden slats. Outside, the world was cloaked in shadows, the air thick with uncertainty, waiting for the inevitable confrontation. Jennifer's mind raced, fighting against the tight grip of fear. Would they face the figure again? How could they escape? And then, from the depths of the night, a voice pierced through the silence. A voice that sent chills racing down their spines. "I know you're in there, you can't hide from me forever." As his words slithered into the eerie gloom, uncertainty flooded Jennifer's mind. How far would this nightmare reach? They needed a plan. Before it was too late. Jennifer held her breath, her heart hammering against her ribcage like a wild animal seeking escape. The chilling voice echoed just outside the barn, creating an unbearable tension that wrapped around them. The man beside her felt her trembling, and he squeezed her hand, trying to infuse some shred of courage into their paralyzing fear. "Stay quiet. We can't let him know we're here," he whispered, his voice barely a thread in the heavy silence. Jennifer nodded, her mouth dry. Every creak of the old barn felt amplified. They were trapped in a fragile cocoon of wood and darkness, hiding from the very thing that hunted them. Outside, the figure continued to taunt them, his voice dripping with malice. "I can wait as long as it takes. You think I won tea? You think I'm afraid of the dark?" Those words sent shivers down Jennifer's spine. The man glanced around frenetically, eyes searching for a way out, anything that could help them escape this living nightmare. Dust motes floated in the faint light, swirling in a dance that felt grotesquely calm compared to the chaos brewing just outside. That in a surge of desperation, he made a plan. "Can you see anything from that side?" he whispered, indicating a crack along the barn's wooden wall. Jennifer shuffled closer, crouching low to the ground. Peering through, she strained her eyes. The moonlight filtered through the leaves of nearby trees, casting distorted shadows. In the distance, her stomach twisted as she saw the silhouette of the stalker, his figure etched against the night. He was pacing, the glint of something metallic glimmering in his hand. "What is he holding?" she asked, her voice barely escaping her throat. "Not sure," he muttered, "but it can't be good." Fear clawed at her, but she was also struck by a burst of defiance. "We can't stay here. We need to find a way out before he decides to come in." Her words ignited a fire within him, and he nodded. "Okay. Let's check for back exits. Stay low and quiet." They moved, each step measured and silent. Their senses were overstimulated. The smell of wood, the sound of creaking floorboards, and the cold draft that swept through the barn heightened every nerve in their bodies. As they crept deeper into the dimness, the atmosphere thickened with dread. Almost simultaneously, they froze. The stalker's laughter echoed once more, mocking, cutting deeper than any blade. "Is this hide and seek? I love this game." Jennifer's stomach turned, and panic surged. The man looked back at her, determination etched on his face. "Listen, we have to distract him. If we do this right, we can get out together," he said with a conviction that silenced her whirling thoughts. "What do you mean?" "The old hayloft. If I can get him to look up, you make a break for the door." Jennifer hesitated. "What if you don't make it back?" His eyes locked onto hers, and in that moment, she didn't see just fear but an unwavering resolve. "You have to trust me." The idea of her running, leaving him behind, made her stomach churn. But there was no time for a debate. The man was already moving, slipping toward the rickety stairs that led to the loft above. Slowly, he climbed, deliberately making noise against the old wood. The stalker's attention shifted, his heavy footsteps padding closer. Jennifer's breath quickened, a storm of conflicting emotions swirling within her. "Hey! You!" her companion called out, his voice piercing the night like a flare. A moment of silence fell, and in that span, Jennifer felt reality stretch painfully, desire and fear battling in her heart. But she couldn't hesitate. The barn door was their only exit, and she would not let fear anchor her any longer. Summoning every ounce of courage, Jennifer dashed toward the opening, the murmur of her own breaths drowning out the chaos around her, and then, a scream pierced the night, everything shattered like glass. Jennifer spun around, heart frozen in her chest, terror ripping through her as the scream echoed back, a sound she would never forget. What was happening? What had she done? The question loomed in the air, heavy as darkness. Clutching the edge of the door, she glanced back. And there, against the shadows, she could see the truth unraveling in front of her, but would it be too late to turn back? Jennifer stood at the barn door, trembling as echoes of that scream clawed at her sanity. She felt paralyzed, the cold grip of terror anchored her feet to the wooden floor. The atmosphere buzzed with palpable dread, and she dared not breathe, terrified of what she might hear next. Go! Her instinct screamed, but her heart battled back. What if he had been hurt? What if she was abandoning him to the horrors that awaited? Fighting against her fears, she pulled herself from the brink of indecision and pushed forward. She had to know. With hesitant steps, she crept back inside, almost certain she'd made the worst mistake of her life. The barn enveloped her in its dim embrace, shadows pooling like liquid darkness, but she steeled herself, calling out in a cracked voice, "Where are you?" Silence answered, thick and suffocating. Then, behind her, she heard a low, mocking laughter ripple through the space, sending waves of nausea crawled up her throat. "Don't be so shy, girl. I've been waiting for you," the figure's voice sang through the gloom. Her heart sank. "No." She gasped, backing away instinctively. "What have you done to him?" He stepped into a beam of silver moonlight, eyes gleaming like the sharp edge of a knife, his twisted smile etched with darkness. "Oh, it's not what I've done, it's what you've brought upon yourselves." With a flick of his wrist, he let a glint of metal shine in her direction. She gasped, recognizing the glimmer of a knife, dread pooling in her stomach. "You can't what?" He interrupted, taking a menacing step forward. "Aren't you curious why I chose you? Why I was waiting, watching? You see, Jennifer, everyone has secrets, and yours." His voice lowered, chilling her to the bone. "It's my favorite game." "No." Rage surged through her, plain and personal. "You don't understand. You're wrong about me." She couldn't stand there and let him play mind games. Suddenly, Jennifer felt a surge of determination. The past flooded back, clearer now. The fire, the guilt, the flames licking the sky didn't belong solely to her but to those other lives intertwined. "It wasn't my fault." The words burst from her lips like a desperate lifeline. He laughed again, a cruel sound that shattered the atmosphere. "Wasn't it? That night, so many lost everything, and yet, you still walk this earth, unscathed. Don't you see? I'm just giving you the chance to play for your freedom. You think this is a game?" "Yes." He stepped closer, buoyed by a manic energy. "You have two choices: be a coward and let your past consume you, or embrace it. Show me you're worthy of survival. You think I'm afraid? You think I'll let you scare me?" That familiar fire sparked in her chest, propelling her forward as she lunged back toward the barn door, feeling the pull of the outside world calling her. "You'll never keep me here." He lunged at her, but she was faster and squeezed through the opening, feeling the cool night air wash over her like a rejuvenating tide. She ran. The sound of her breath in her ears drowned out the chaos behind her. A distant shout carried in the wind, "Run! Help!" Jennifer screamed, the sharp cries of panic merging with the night. The voice in her head warned her to keep going, but she couldn't abandon him. "Where are you?" A shape appeared in the darkness, a silhouette of someone she recognized. It was the man, emerging from the shadows. Relief surged through her, driving the fear away. "Over here." She grabbed his arm, pulling him with urgency. "We have to get to the road." They sprinted hand in hand, the adrenaline amplifying each heartbeat like a drum urging them forward. The figure's laughter echoed behind them, filling the air with dread, but they couldn't look back. Rushing toward the nearest road, the familiar warmth of headlights shimmered like salvation. Vague shapes of vehicles passed, and Jennifer inhaled the scent of freedom over fear. They had to reach someone, anyone who could help, but as they sprinted, the shadow of their stalker emerged once more, looming large beneath the moonlight. "No!" the man cried, turning to confront the dark figure. "Leave her alone. Too late, my friend. The game has just begun," the figure sneered, closing the distance like a predator. "No!" Jennifer screamed, pulling her companion back into motion, but not before a hand reached out, catching him and dragging him backward. Go. Run. He shouted, pain etched on his face, desperation coursing through their connection. No. She couldn't abandon him. She had fought too hard to lose everything now. But as dread washed over her, something in her began to grind down. In that moment of terror, clarity hit her like a bursting dam. It was time to face the truth. She remembered the fire, the guilt, and the need to confront whatever haunted them both. Let him go. You want me? Then take me. The figure paused, bewildered by her boldness. The shifting weight of the air thickened, tension rising like a storm. You think you can bargain with me? He mocked. Yes. I know I didn't start the fire. But I carried it. If I stand and confront it, will you leave us alone? Laughter echoed. How adorable. You think you can just will your way out of this? But something shifted in his eyes. Maybe, just maybe, there's more to your story. Then she did the unthinkable. She stepped forward, facing him head-on. It was terrifying, yet she could feel a pulse of strength rising from deep within her bones. Let him go and I will face whatever you want. The man gasped, shock rippling through him, but she pressed on. Thoughts of her painful past mingled with the fire of resolve. She knew this nightmare had woven into her life, causing chaos because they all needed to confront the truth they buried deep. A strange silence filled the air, one thick with layered histories and woven emotions. Their eyes locked, and in that moment, Jennifer felt the ghostly grip on fear loosening. Don't you see? This is not about the past. The figure stepped closer, she could sense a change. This is about control. Proving who holds the power. Jennifer straightened her spine, shaking. But control isn't power. Strength comes from forgiveness and truth. A snarl twisted his features, the darkness swirling in his aura. Forgiveness? You mean to allow others to continue to play? Yes. Free us from our chains. Time held its breath. And with every moment that passed, she felt the courage bloom brighter. Take me, if that means he is free. He paused again, a glimmer of uncertainty flashing across his gaze. Fine. Let us see if you're truly brave enough to face your past. In that heartbeat of resolve, the darkness shivered. The figure released the man, and Jennifer felt her own burning truth ignite like the brightest flame. Go, she whispered, finally finding her voice. Go and help me break the cycle. And as she stood there, bathed in the light of their confrontation, she realized the shadows could only tyrannize her if she let them. Standing courageous, the winds shifted, the storm inside her calmed. One deep breath echoed in the night as the figure melted into the darkness, and Jennifer felt light enough to finally rise above the past she had been running from. In those moments, she became more than someone held hostage by fear. She became the architect of her own freedom and, in doing so, opened the door to buried truths that had long needed confronting. As dawn broke over the horizon, hope flourished. Perhaps she would never escape entirely, but now she stood prepared to shape her story not just with survival, but with assurance and strength that it was finally over. A new beginning awaited. Don't miss the chance, folks. You need to subscribe now to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. Smash that like button right now to feed the algorithm and support what you love, and flood the comment section with your reactions and theories about this stunning conclusion because your voice matters. Instantly share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this incredible ending. Don't wait even one more second to spread the word and keep the adventure alive.